Hello everybody, John Phillips with Mansfield University Computer Science Department here, and in this video we're going to look over some basic Linux commands. And I'm assuming you're a beginner when it comes to using the Linux operating system, and so in a previous video I showed you how you can set up on Amazon Web Services a Ubuntu LAMP server. And so go ahead and start your Linux server running. Select it, go to Instant State Start, and then it should come up in a couple minutes running. And so now we want to connect to this. We need to grab the public IP address. Okay, so Control C to copy that. And then we want to launch PuTTY. So we also downloaded this in a previous video, but P-U-T-T-Y, you can just Google that if you need to and download it. And well, now for the, actually we already have a session created before. Let me just run through all the settings though, in case you missed that. So we'll paste our IP address in right here. We'll name this, I'll go ahead and use the date. And then feel free to skip ahead a little bit if you just want to use your previous set of settings, but save the new IP address. Okay, and so what did I change? Well, down here under Window, I set lines of scroll back to a much larger number, 200,000. Appearance, I made the font Consolas 18. So you could see it a little bit better in my video, but choose whatever you like there. Colors, if you like a white background, use system colors. Otherwise, you'll have a black background, which is fine. Connection, I set the keep alive to 60. And when I log in as the Ubuntu user, I set SSH off. But we're just going to log in today as the Jane Doe user, JDoe, which was a user we set up in the previous video that the script we used set that up for us. So if you are going to log in as a Ubuntu user, you need to go to Auth and browse for your private key file. But for our Jane Doe user, we don't need that. So I'll go back to Session with these settings. I will save it, and I will choose Open. Gives us a warning, we can ignore that. Say yes, connect. Log in as JDoe, and the password was MUCIS, unless you changed it. Okay, so here we are logged in using PuTTY. Now if you're on a Mac OS X machine, you would have opened Terminal, your terminal program, and used SSH to connect. And so you can Google those directions as well. All right, what are some commands? Well, when you're all done, one you definitely want to give is the logout command, but we won't do that until the very end. Another command you ought to give is the password command, spelled P-A-S-S-W-D. And if you type that in, it'll ask you for your current password, M-U-C-I-S, and then you can enter a new password. And if you type in something too short that it considers too simple, you can change these rules later if you want to. But right now, with the default settings, it said what I typed with 6 characters was too simple. So you know, you can either just get out of this right now or choose a better password. And let me try a better password. And I probably won't remember that password, so I better write it down. All right, so it says password updated successfully, so the next time you log in, you would need to use that new password. The next command I want to look at is how do we see the files in our current directory? So the command is ls, that stands for list files. And we see we have a file called public HTML. Now that's actually a directory. Now to see more information about our files, we can do ls -l for a long listing. We can also do ls A to list all the files, including the hidden files. Now, any file name that begins with a period is automatically a hidden file. So we see we have quite a few hidden files there. We can also combine those, and this is the one I usually use, ls-either AL or LA. It doesn't matter what order you do it. And that shows you the long listing of all of your files, including the hidden files. Now, over here on the left, we have a series of letters and dashes. The letter D says that this guy here is actually a directory. And so we have a directory called public HTML. The next three letters from the left side, that is the permissions for the owner of the directory or the file. So we see that the owner typically has read-write permissions. And then sometimes you have an X permission, and that means that that directory may contain executable files, or if it's a file, it's an executable file. Okay, then the next three letters, that is for the group. And so over here on the right, we see the name of the owner followed by the name of the group the owner belongs to. And so in the current setup, you would be, when you create a new user, they would have the same username and group name. But in some systems, that could be done differently. So you might have user JDoe as a part of the accounts department, something like that. And so the group would be accounts. Okay, then you see the size in bytes of the file or the directory, and then you see the date that it was created. Okay, so these are called the file and directory permissions, and so we'll learn how to change those with a command coming up. All right, well, let's go ahead and create a few things. First of all, let's create a new directory. So mkdir, let's make a directory called project. So make directory, and now if we go ls, we see we have a new directory called project. Now, to change into different directories, you use the cd command. It stands for change directory, so we can change into the project directory, cd project, and now we see that we are, you see a little tilde slash project $. The $sign says we're logged in as a regular user and not the root user. The tilde stands for our home directory. And so to see our full directory listing, we can type pwd, print working directory. And you see that we're actually in the home directory, and then the JDoe subdirectory, and then in the project subdirectory. And that little tilde represents /home/JDoe for this particular user. For another user, say we have a user Frank, it would be /home/Frank. The tilde would represent that particular home directory. Okay, so here we are. So we just did the cd command. What if you want to get back to where you were? You can do cd space ... That moves you up one level. So now we're in the JDoe directory. If you do that again, we're back up another level. We're in the home directory. And finally, if you do it one more time, we're now in the root directory, the very topmost level directory. All right, what if you just type cd by itself? Well, that's a really handy command. That takes you directly back to your own home directory. So it immediately moves you to your home directory. All right, where are other places you go? Well, you could go directly to the root directory by typing cd /, and then we're in the root directory. And what is there? How do we see what's there? Just type ls to list all the files and directories. And there we see are the different directories. So we see the home directory, and we see a variety of places that we'll learn more about in the future. Now, if you're a system administrator, one directory you spend a lot of time in is the etc directory, etc. So let's go there. So we'll go cd etc. So we're going there from the root directory. Let's say we're in the home directory, in our own home directory. How do we get there directly? You could just say cd /etc. You could give the path to the etc directory. So that moves you to the root directory, then the etc directory, all in one command. Now, if we look in the etc directory, you see there's all sorts of files. There's all the configuration files for the system. And you can read most of these files, but to make changes, you usually have to have permissions to make those changes, typically using the sudo command. And our user Jane Doe does not currently have permissions to change these files. But you could certainly look at them if you wanted to. All right, well, let's get back to our home directory. So I'll just say cd, and then get into our project directory. Now, notice I didn't type those last few letters. When you're in a when you have files and directories that the names vary by a fair amount, you can just type cd and the first few unique letters. So PRO or PR would have been good enough, and then hit the tab key, and that'll type the rest for you. So that's a big time saver in typing. Okay, now in this directory, we don't have any regular files yet. Let's go ahead and type in a file. So how can we create a new file? Well, there's several ways, but two text editors that I'm going to mention and demonstrate are the Nano text editor and the VI or the Vim. We're actually using Vim, VI improved text editor. So to use Nano, just type Nano and give it a file name. So maybe I'm going to call this test. And then it starts up Nano, and we could type something in. Okay, so there's a file. You can hit enter, you can keep typing. Now, when you're all done with your typing, you can move up and down, move around, make changes. When you're done typing, down here at the bottom, notice that there is a menu across here. We see exit, we see write out. And so what we're going to want to do is write out this file. So this is telling us to hold down Control and hit the letter O to write out. Now it says file name to write at the bottom there. It says test, and that's what we want. We just want to keep the same name. You could change it if you wanted to. So then just hit the enter key, and it says wrote 2 lines. Now we can exit this, or we could keep on typing if we wanted to. But to exit, hold down Control and hit the letter X. So Nano is a very simple text editor. If we do ls, we should now see our file test. There it is. ls-la will show us more information about our file. So we see the owner and the group have read-write permissions, and everybody else has read permissions. And so we could we'll learn how to change that here in a little bit. We see our file has 31 bytes and the date it was created. Okay, well, how do you see what's in your file? One command that lets you do that is the cat command. So you can say cat followed by a file name, and there's the contents of our file. To edit it again, we type Nano and then test. I think I'll save Vim for an upcoming video, and we'll cover that in more detail. But anyway, that's about all there is to using Nano. How do you make a copy of a file? Well, you say CP, that stands for copy, the file name that you want to copy, and the new name that you want to give it. Maybe I'll copy from test to test2. And now I have a test2 file, and I can print that out. And there it is again. And I could go in and edit it if I wanted to. What if you said, oh, I really didn't want to name it test2. I wanted to name it, something different. Well, there's a command for that. It's called move, MV, but it can also be used to rename a file. So let's say we want to rename test2 to be test3. So you just give it the existing file name and the new file name you want to give it. And now if we say ls, we see that test2 has been renamed test3. Now move can also actually move a file. Say we want to move test3 to the directory right above the project folder. Okay, so to do that, we'd say move test3, and then the folder above us is ... Let's see if this works. So if I go ls, test3 is gone. If I go cd ... ls, there's test3. Okay. Let's see. How do you remove a file? What if I don't really want test3 here? Well, the command to delete a file or remove a file, rm, and then you just give it a name of the file you want to remove. Let's say you want to remove like all your class files. You know, you might say something like this. You can use wildcards, asterisk, if I could find my asterisk there, dot class. That would erase all of your class files that ended with dot class and began with anything. Let me just go ahead and get rid of test3. And now if I go ls, we see test3 is gone. You can also erase entire directories and the subdirectories within a directory, and you can do it recursively. It's just you have to be real careful with this command. So the command is rm-r, and then let's say we want to get rid of the project folder and everything in it and all of its subfolders. Well, that's going to recursively erase everything. Now, you got to be real careful with that command, because you can easily, you know, if you just put it right here, you're going to wipe out all your directories and all your files in your home directory. So that might be very bad. So that's a fairly dangerous command right there. Sometimes you might have a big long command. Let's go back to the etc directory. So cd /etc. Okay, we have a file here, nanorc. And so to type that out, we could just say cat nanorc. But it went by too fast to read it all. And so we could pipe this command, cat nanorc, using the pipe symbol into another program called more. And if you do this, it'll type out all of nanorc, but pipe it into the more program that will show you just a screenful at a time. And so you hit the space bar, so there's the very top of the file. Hit the space bar to go to the next page. Hit the space bar again. So each time you hit the space bar, you get another page of this configuration file. And so you can scroll down through it using the space bar. However, it just goes one direction. So there's another program that's maybe a little bit more convenient. And this is the less program. So less is more kind of thing. So less nanorc. And with less, you can scroll up and down using your cursor keys, or you can hit page up and page down to scroll through the document. Now when you get to the end, it just says end. It doesn't get you out of it. You can go back up again. To get out of it, you hit the letter Q to quit. Okay, so that's a real handy command. And then sometimes you're looking at error logs, things like that, and you don't want to have to scroll through a big file. Another command is tail. And with tail, you could give it the name of a file, and it'll show you the last 10 lines of that file. So here we're seeing the very end of that file. Sometimes you might want to see more than 10 lines. So what you can do is you can say tail dash in. Oops, that was an equal sign. Let's see, dash in. And then give it a number, for example, 20, and now it's going to give you 20 lines from that file. Or you could give it a smaller number, the last 2 lines, and then you just see the very bottom 2 lines of that file. So that could be really useful when you're looking at error logs. Let's go ahead and go back to our home folder and get into our project folder, cd project. And we just have our test file there, ls -la, to see the permissions. Now what if we want to change permissions? So one real common setting is 755. Now these are octal numbers, so the biggest number you can have is 7. And 7, as you'll see, for the owner will give us read, write, execute permissions. And then the 55, that in octal says turn on the read bit and the execute bit for the group and everyone else. So let's see if this works. And there we see we have read, write, execute for the owner, but everybody else can just read and execute. So that's very often the setting you'll need to set for if you do any shell script or any scripting type languages like Perl or Python or Ruby that you're going to access over the web. You'll give typically that kind of command. Let's try a different one. What if we made it all sevens? chmod 777 test. And then you see it turned on all of the permissions for everybody, for the owner, for the group, and for everyone else. What if you want only the owner to be able to read and write? That would be, I believe, read and write, that would be a 6 and a 0 and a 0 for everybody else. And there we see that only the owner now can read and write this file. Okay, so that's the chmod command. Okay, and let's see, what's next? Okay, a couple of system administrator type commands that you might need to use as a user. One is PS, process status. So that shows all of your processes that are running. PS AUX shows you all the processes. There we see the Apache web server. With each process, you have a process ID number. And you can use this to stop a process. So sometimes you might have a program that's stuck in an infinite loop and you need to stop it. The command to stop it is kill, and then you give it the process ID number. So say we want to stop 6319. And so you would type the process ID number, and then that would stop it, assuming you have permissions to actually stop that process. So you can stop your own processes, but not somebody else's unless you use the sudo command. And we don't have permission for that as this user. But the Ubuntu user does have the permission. They're the system administrator, and they could go in and give the command to stop any process. Okay. So that's the kill command, and then sometimes it doesn't work, and then you have to say kill -9. Keep hitting the equal sign, -9, and then the process you want to stop, and then that should stop it if you have permission to stop that process. All right. Sometimes you want to find out who are all the people logged onto my system. So it might just be you, but you might have several people or yourself logged in several times. The who command will tell you about that. We've already seen this command in a previous video. The top command tells you how system resources are being used. You can see Linux, when you don't set up a GUI system, just leave it all console based, is extremely efficient with memory. So we have a lot of memory free here, just a 1 gigabyte machine. And so we have, this is in kibibytes, so we have a lot of memory available. And our machine is sitting here mostly idle. And it could support a lot of users all accessing it at the same time with no trouble. Okay, so Q to get out of this. To learn more about commands, use the man command, M-A-N, and then whatever you want to find out more about. And then most commands have a lot of options, and so you can go down in the manual and see what are these different options that I can use on my commands. And then of course you could also Google the command and find out more about it using your web browser. So we have our LAMP server here. We learned a few basic Linux commands to help us get around and work with our files. So that's all for this video. You know, there's just a ton of information out on the web. If you want to look at, there's a command that you think you need, you know, just search for it, and you're likely to find the information and some directions on how to use it on the internet. Okay, well, I'm going to log out. Be sure to go back to your control panel if you're doing all of this using AWS, and select your instance and instance state stop if you're done with it for today. Or maybe you're actually starting to use it as a web server. You might just want to, it's a micro instance, it costs very little. You might just want to leave it running. Your free credits or your free year on Amazon might cover the expense, and you can just leave it going.